Well, hello there. Welcome to episode 50 of Chit Chats with Git Cats. It's been a little while. I had to take some time off due to some software issues. Hopefully, we've got all those sorted out. And in that meantime, I've rounded up some sponsors. So I'd really like to give a shout out to Summer Cable, Chicken Picks, and ET Guitars for getting behind us. I'm going to have some competitions coming up for you guys where I'm giving away heaps of goodies from those guys. But in the meantime, ding dong, who's at my door? It's none other than Mr. Frank Gambale. Hey, Frank. Mate, thank you for joining me all the way from Spain. How is that over there?
Yes. I got a lot of music. I can hardly hear you.
You've got your computer playing in the background.
No, that's you. Your music. There it goes.
Hello there.
Oh, no, I reckon that's you've got YouTube open in the background.
Whoa, hang on.
Where's
that coming from?
Sorted out.
Big echo.
And in that meantime, I've grabbed sponsors. Shout out to
Oh, you're right. I just saw what the problem is.
Yep.
And ET Guitars.
I've seen this happen before. People love a train wreck, mate, so don't worry about it.
That's exactly what we got. Oh dear, yeah.
That's okay, mate.
Quit so far. I think we'll start again.
That's it. Now I can say, Mr. Frank Gambale.
I had it on Safari using the Google Chrome, and they were both going at the same time. So you only need one of us at a time. I'm pretty sure.
Now we're good. So, mate, as we were talking, you're living in Spain now. You moved over there recently.
Yes. I moved in September to Barcelona, and it's a love affair that's been happening for a lot of years. I started touring in Europe in around 1986, and just love Europe. I just love the history and the art, and I'm a big fan of Gaudí, Antoni Gaudí, the architect. He was all over the place here in Barcelona. And Dali and Picasso, all those guys really inspired me. I could just look at a structure and get all googly, or look at, I can walk down the street and go to the Picasso Museum and just stare at a Picasso. Or a Dali museum down the other end of the street. It's just, I love it. My wife loves it. My daughter loves it. We're all in love with Spain. And it's such a beautiful the people are so friendly and nice and respectful and helpful, and I'm really digging it. It's a nice change. I was in LA for 40 years, and that was completely awesome too. But I just felt like, what a life well lived. I grew up in Australia, first 22 years there, moved to the States for a heck of a long time, and now I'm over here in Europe. So I'm getting the best of all worlds.
And what part of Australia? What part of Australia did you grow up in?
I grew up in
Canberra. Okay.
Yeah. I always say you got to be from somewhere.
So, Frank,
Canberra, it's one of those towns that gets a lot of bad press from the rest of Australia, and I never understood why. It's a very beautiful town, and it was a great place to grow up. I loved my time in Australia and in Canberra, especially. So,
nice.
Go on.
Over. We did say that, but there is a bit of a delay, folks. So if you hear us saying
Yeah.
over, there is a slight delay just to stop us talking over each other. But Frank, I'm going to ask you, how did the love affair with the guitar start for you as a kid in Canberra?
No, I actually hate the guitar. No, I love the guitar. I'm a guitar nut. I've been playing it since I was 6 years old. I'm 62 now. And, I just love the instrument. I love the sound of a plucked string and all the incredible sounds you can get out of a guitar, whether it's through effects or just the guitar itself, whether it's acoustic, electric, it doesn't really matter. Anything with strings on, I always say. And, I was lucky. I had two older brothers, and they were way into it as a youngster. So I really got stuck into it at a young age. And it stayed with me since then, sometimes I'll listen to a group, and if they don't have a guitar player in it, I go, "What's wrong with these guys? Why don't they have a guitar player?" You know, I said that actually when I first went to see Chick Corea's electric band. In the beginning, you know, I played with that. Eventually, I played with that group for 36 years. You know,
Wow.
and with Chick. And when I went to see the group the first time, it was in LA. There's a part of LA called Long Beach, which is basically the port area, the harbor area. And there's a festival there occasionally called the Long Beach Jazz Festival. And I remember going to see Chick because I was already a big fan. And the trio played, and they were amazing. It was incredible. But I thought, great band, they need a guitar player. And you know, who'd have thought that a year later I'd be in the band? So careful what you wish for, folks.
Wow. Wow. So you said you had two older brothers. Did they play guitar as well?
They did originally, yes. My brother Nunzio is probably more famous than me in Australia. He had, after I left, he established the biggest and the first mail order music store in Australia based out of Canberra called Pro Audio. Mm-hmm. And everybody knows Pro Audio. He sold the business maybe 20-something years ago, but he went to America and did a whole lot of market research. You know, was the first to do mail order, which was brilliant. So if nobody came through the shop, you know, Canberra's only a small town, you know, he was still doing mega business, shipping out stuff all over the country. So it was great. It worked out really well. And so, yeah, my brother Nunes was the bass player in all the groups that I was in. And my middle brother, Severia, played pretty decent guitar too for quite a while, but he got more interested in girls and other things. And you know, I was the one that kept it going, mostly because I was the youngest, and I didn't have all the other encumbrances that, you know, the older guys have, you know, so at the time. So it was good.
And did they pass on a bit of what they knew on the guitar to you? Is that how you first started, from lessons from them, or did you have a teacher in the early days?
It wasn't really that. It was more the fact that they influenced what I was listening to. And, you know, they were way into a lot of interesting stuff, you know, everything from the Beatles to, you know, I remember John Mayall, the blues, a lot of blues stuff in the late 60s, Cream and, you know, Hendrix and all that stuff. They were laying it on me as a kid, you know, and I was, you know, as a 6 or 7 year old, I wouldn't normally be listening to that kind of stuff if it wasn't for them that were already in their almost early teens, you know. So that was pretty cool. You know, they turned me on to stuff that I would never have heard. And so I had to learn by ear. We were all, you know, it was LPs, vinyls, and we would, you know, we'd all be there picking up a note or two at a time and trying to find it on the guitar. It was all by ear, you know.
Yeah.
Back then, so
yeah.
It was cool. It was a great way to learn guitar. I learned mostly by ear for the first 7 or 8 years, and after that, I really thought I want to know, I want to understand what I'm doing. You know, so I learned how to read and you know, just started listening to other kinds of things and learned my harmony and theory. You know, I think it's essential. Otherwise, you keep hitting this brick wall, musically speaking, you know. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to just play the same thing over and over and over and over and over for the rest of my life. I wanted to keep growing as a musician. So,
yep.
Anyway, yeah.
You know, that rings true with me. I get very bored of my own playing. And you know what? I think I need to take advantage of your frankgambaleguitarschool.com promotion you've got at the moment.
Oh.
Speaking of which, of teaching, 40% off you're offering students, yeah? 40% off by using the code for Australia.
Yeah, the number 4, Australia, all in capital letters. Yeah, look, I love Aussies and I love musicians. And, actually, there's probably people listening everywhere, but I like to give back wherever I can. And, you know, if I can be an influence in a positive way, like a lot of people have been on me, I like to give back. And I've got some pretty cool courses at my online school.
Well, Frank, I did mention to you as we were chatting before we went live that a very major thing that I learnt along the way that I use all the time when I'm playing was taught to me by you at a clinic. I'm struggling to think if it was 88, 89, 90. It was an Ibanez clinic. I was only a young fella, like 14, 15, 16, but you were explaining about the modes. And up until that point, everybody had just spat mathematics at me. Oh, 1, flat 2, 3, well, this just made no sense to me.
Right.
But you brought up a very easy thing to remember, and that was that if you saw two major chords a tone apart, that is your 4 and 5 of the parent key. And whatever chord everything seems to be hanging around, that dictates what mode you're actually playing in. And that just really sunk in like you wouldn't believe. And I'm hoping that you have other bits of gold like that at your frankgambaleguitarschool.com that you can pass on to folks.
Yeah, do I ever? You have to go and have a look, Yes, I've done several courses on different interesting subjects. The first one I did was called Spicing Up the Blues, which is a 10-hour video course on the blues. It starts very traditionally, but then I like to kind of spice up the blues so that you're not always playing the standard stuff on blues. So I give people a lot of information in that direction. And then the second course I put up there was about my sweep picking technique, which everybody was interested in. And, I hadn't done anything since the 80s, so I had to bring it up to date because I've explored and discovered a lot of new things over the last 30 years or so. So I did a new video course, 10-hour course on sweep picking. I call it Gambale sweep picking. And then, there's several other courses. I did a huge music theory. People are scared of music theory, especially guitar players. They go, if I learn all this harmony, I'm going to, play jazz. And it's really not the case. It's just not true. Or I'm going to lose my feel, man. Look, if you have your heart's not going anywhere. Your feel is your feel, I've always loved the idea of mixing intellect with soul, and that's why I love to learn more information about music and theory, and because it just expands my head and makes me go into different directions or helps me. It inspires me. It's not something that to be fearful of. And the mathematics is pretty easy. I mean, anybody can count to 13. That's about as hard as number-wise that music theory is, So when I was head of the guitar department at LA Music Academy in Los Angeles for about 10 years. It was a little private school. And I wrote all the curriculum for that school. So, aside from all my touring and playing and making albums as an artist, which is still my principal thing that I do, I love to educate as well. And I had this, one of the courses I put up on my school is called Peace and Harmony, because I want people to come to peace with harmony and learning it's called the Theory of Creativity.
Okay.
And it's an 18-hour course that was condensed from a one-year online school, physical school at LA Music Academy. So it was a one-year course condensed into 18 hours of video, and it's pretty cool. And I always say it's the only theory course you will ever need. So, it's all there. There's several other courses, too. You can go and check it out for yourselves.
Nice one. Mate, now, you mentioned that when you were in LA, you saw Chick Corea and you thought, these guys need a guitar player, and then a year later you were playing with them. How did that come about?
Yeah. Well, you have to be in the right place at the right time, and you have to be the right man for the job. Chick was someone I admired since I was 13. I discovered his music and started going down a different path. All my friends were listening to Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd and all that stuff back then in the 70s. And when I discovered Chick, I knew my path was diverging from the norm a little bit, going down a different path. And, I never thought my path would cross with Chick himself. I just thought that was beyond. It seemed stratospheric to me. Um, but I was drawn to LA because all my favorite recordings were coming out of LA. So I went there and it was great. I spent a year at GIT practicing like mad. And, I just happened to run into the right sort of people. I was doing an album with a guy called Jeff Berlin, a bass player, quite a famous bass player. And we did it at Mad Hatter Studios, which was Chick's studio at the time. And when I walked into the place, I went, oh my gosh, it was like 1 degree of separation here. I was just impressed because a lot of the album covers were, in beautiful frames, the original album covers and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
and I got to play the pianos, and so many of my favorite albums were done in that very studio.
Wow.
So it was kind of like Mecca for me. But I remember leaving the studio one day and loading up my gear, and somebody came out of the office in the floor below, and I knew Chick's offices were there and his publishing and everything. And I met somebody, and I said, "Look, I'll give you my card. I don't know if Chick ever needs a guitar player, but here's my name, and please, you got to give me a call. I want to be considered." And this girl was Chick's manager's secretary, personal secretary. And she went, Frank Gambale. I know that name. I said, really? She said, yeah. It's my husband plays with you. He's a famous drummer, Tommy Breckline,
Oh,
who
wow.
played on several of Chick's records. And so it just led from there. About 6 months later, I got a call for an audition. And the rest is pretty much history. I got the gig, of course, and was cool. Great.
Awesome.
Off I launched. It was like taking off in the space shuttle.
And did you do most of your playing with Chick, or have you got other artists that you did a lot of touring with as well, or was that your main gig?
Well, my main gig is my band, believe it or not. I
Yeah.
tour under my own name, Frank Gambale, and I have for many, many years, aside from Chick.
Yeah.
I in the early days of the Electric Band, which was kind of around 86, in October 86, I joined the band. And from 86 to 92, we were full on touring. And we were playing for huge audiences all over the world. And then there was a 10-year hiatus. In fact, at that time, I left the band because I wanted to pursue my own music more so. I had just gotten a good 5 album record deal with a major label. And I'd already done 3 albums before that. So I was into doing my own music at that point. I love Chick, but I had my own artistic expression too, and I wanted to get that out.
Of course.
And, I've since done 20 something albums with my own bands and my own music. I did about 6 albums with Chick. I was also for 20 years in a band called Vital Information, which was the drummer from Journey, Steve Smith, very famous drummer. That was his band, but I did a lot of the writing for roughly 10 albums or so that I did with them. The keyboard player was Santana's keyboard player for many years, Tom Coster. And he co-wrote many of Santana's hits during that time, like Europa and a few other very important tunes of Carlos's early catalog. And so it was a great band. I did that for 20 years. We toured in that band too. So at one point I was in 3 bands, and so it was a lot of work, but it was great. And I also worked with Jean-Luc Ponty, the very famous jazz violinist. And in fact, I loved his music about as much as I loved Chick's music. And I actually got that gig before I played with Chick.
Oh, cool.
And we did one US tour for sure. And then I heard about Chick's audition. I went, I'll see if I can get that gig too. Have my cake and eat it. And so, yeah, that's what else. I mean, I've worked with a great drummer too from the Mahavishnu Orchestra days, Billy Cobham, and I did quite a few tours with him too. When the phone rings, I answer it, and if it's something interesting, I'll do it. But as always, my main focus is to do my own music as much as possible. And but if there's always people I've wanted to play with, and so you got to do it sometimes. If Chick calls, I usually say yes. I'm not going to say, oh, no, I'm a bit busy, Chick. I don't know if, we have to work out our schedules too, and the good thing about Chick was that he always worked way in advance. I mean, he would book us a year ahead or a year and a half ahead. So, we were always available. Most people don't have the calendar booked that far in advance,
Sure.
but he did. So that always worked for me. So that was great, So I could always manipulate and do my things in and around those schedules too.
Okay. So how about going back to when you were in Australia? Were you gigging much in Australia before moving to LA?
Yeah. It's funny. Several times when I would come back to Australia, people thought I was American because I just came out of nowhere. Most people were not aware that I was in Australia. Born and raised. And yeah, look, in Canberra, when I was coming up in the late 60s, 70s, there were tons of clubs to play in. There were clubs everywhere. Every ethnic group had their own club. There was a Finnish Australian club, the Italian Australian club, the German Australian club. It just went on and on and on. And they would all have dances, and there were the football clubs too. I worked like mad at one point, I was working 6 nights a week, really honing my craft. But it was cover bands, where they were the pop bands or they were country. Country music was huge in Canberra, and you could work 6 nights a week if you had a country band. And we had a really nice country band where we all sang. I missed the singing, I was one of the lead singers or at least one of the harmony singers most of the time. And I returned to that a little bit on my last 2 records. They're all vocal records. But so, I was definitely doing a lot. My older brother, Nunzio, was the bass player, and he's the consummate businessman. You wouldn't believe what he's doing now. He's going to be like the next Bill Gates very shortly. But I digress. Back then, he was a really good bass player and singer too. And he put together a band called Night Flight. And that was a band that we actually toured up and down the coast. We played in Sydney quite a bit. We had a band that was a disco band because in the late 70s, disco music hit. And a lot of the rock bands went, nah, we're not going to play that shit, man. That's horrible,
Yeah.
We resist. And fair enough, too. But we were way into all kinds of music. I mean, for me, Earth, Wind and Fire, jamming on Earth, Wind and Fire was okay with me. We put a lot of, we played Michael Jackson tunes and all that stuff that people went nuts hearing it live. So we ended up working a lot in discos where most bands, just didn't play. They wouldn't want to go in there. So we would be half hour on, half hour off with discos, and it was brilliant. We worked like mad. We went all the way up to Cairns and down, and good. It was a good experience, good kind of road trip experience. My first real band. I was still quite young. I was probably 19, 20.
Yeah.
But I was playing professionally since I was 13. My brother got gigs, and I'd be up late at night. We'd have gigs in Goulburn and all these towns, and sheep shearing sheds. It didn't matter where the heck we played, And I remember all my early classes in high school, I just failed because I was half asleep or I'd get there late because I had a gig the night before and I was making money,
Yeah.
So that's how my passion was music from a very early age. And, that's what I wanted to do. It was destiny, I didn't have a choice in the matter. It was just what I do,
Yeah.
I've never had a real job. That's what I always tell people.
So do you find that there was a point where you said you started playing in the pubs at 13, so I was like 14 myself, and that really cemented things for me because it wasn't a case of I'm playing this song at home and I'm going to play half the song. No, even if you didn't like that song, you had to play it from beginning to end like you meant it. And I think those early days playing those pub gigs really cemented things for me. Was there a point that really cemented things for you?
Yes, actually, mine was much earlier. There was a pop festival called, I think, Sunbury. Is that
Yeah,
still happening?
That's over in
Sunbury,
Western
it was
Australia? WA?
No.
No.
This one was somewhere in New South Wales, and I don't remember. I was 9. But my brother dragged me to this festival, and somehow he talked one of the bands into letting me jam on blues, because I was already pretty proficient at 9 playing blues, And so I was this little kid, and I didn't even stand up on the stage. I sat on the edge with my feet dangling, my legs dangling, right? And I'm playing a blues. And it was very early in the festival. I mean, it was almost like pre-festival, but there was about 1,000 people. And I played, and hearing that crowd just roar at me, that has an effect on you.
Oh, yeah.
As a little impressionable kid, I went, oh my gosh, they like it. I thought maybe I can do this for a living. I wasn't thinking that, but I just remember the rush that it gave me, and then some people go chasing that all their lives, but and it is a thrill to be in front of a big audience. It always is, so that was the earliest recollection for me, 9 at a pop festival jamming with a blues. It was great. What a great initiation.
Lawrence Gambale, I'm not sure if that's one of your brothers, or says that Sunbury was in Victoria.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Lawrence. He's my nephew.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Yeah, my brother's oldest and first son. Yes. I love him dearly. Hello, Lawrence, wherever you are.
So I am going to get to the questions there, folks. So keep leaving some there. I can see there's a few there, and I'll come to them in a bit while we chat a bit more. But I did want to ask Frank. I mentioned the clinic that I saw you at, and I can remember you said after you played for a while, "Is there any questions?" And everyone stuck their hand up, and then you went, "Does anybody have any questions not about my picking?" And everyone put their hand down, and you went, "Okay, let me explain the picking." And that was the first time I'd ever seen anybody sweep pick, and it was just mind blown. You were one of the first guys out there doing it, if not the first guy. Did you see that somewhere? Did you come up with that concept somehow? How did that all come about?
There were a lot of factors with the sweep picking, and I'll tell you a little story because it's important, I think. I've recently claimed it as my own, to a huge amount of controversy. People say, Les Paul did, this, he did. They would do this little flurry.
Yep.
And I go, yes, he did that. And then there would be, Django Reinhardt did, they would do this little thing. And I said, but nobody did this. Nobody did that.
No.
And it's this stream of consciousness all based on sweeping. And, and for many, when I first hit the scene, it was like I had dropped from Mars or something. It really was a revolutionary way to play. And, and everybody went, oh, of course, it's that hindsight has 20/20 vision. It's hilarious to me that, people went, oh, well, of course, why wouldn't you rake across the strings? I mean, it makes perfect sense, right?
Yep.
If you're going to play 3 notes in a row on different strings, why on earth would you alternate? It just doesn't make any sense at all. Raking or sweeping across makes the most sense. And I just took that and kept going with it. It's endless, really. I was the first to write a book on the subject called Speed Picking. I wasn't even allowed to use sweep picking. I wanted the title to be Sweep Picking, but the publisher said, but nobody knows what it is. they're not going to have a clue what the subject is, right? We're talking early days on this, right? So he said, let's call it speed picking. At least they know it's got something to do with playing fast, and it's a technique about picking. And the whole world of guitar, there's very little written on the right hand and picking. A lot of it's focused on harmony and licks and this and that, but think about it. In reality, there's hardly anything out there on how to get organized with the pick. And really, it's 50% of what we're doing here. It's a major part. We need to get organized one way or another in some fashion, whether it's alternate picking or sweep or a combination or tapping or, the Holsworth's technique with the hammering and the pull off. Doesn't matter what you do. At some point, you need to get organized so that so that you can flow freely without hindrances. So I wrote the book. I wanted to share it because I thought it was such an important development in the guitar. So I wrote the book. In fact, I wrote the book while I was still a student at GIT in 1983. Because I would be practicing in a room. The other students would come up to me and go, "Man, hey, what is that you're doing? Show me. How do you do that?" I got so frustrated that I couldn't practice because I would be showing people what I was doing. I wrote the book. I just wrote it, and I made photocopies. And so if anybody would come up to me, I say, they'd say, "What are you doing?" I say, "Here, take this. Have this. Go study. Let me practice." Yeah. And so that's how that started. And that book still sells today. It's one of those things. It's an ongoing product. And, then I did video in roughly 85, 86 or something. And I wanted to share it with the world because I think it's an important development. And it's now obviously part of the guitar lexicon. It's an accepted technique. Whereas, I think most people didn't do it because the biggest hurdle was doing it in time. Playing it in time is really weird when your pick is moving strange directions. The downbeats can be on upstroke or downstroke. When you play alternate, there's always this metronomic feel to strict alternate. You don't have that sensation at all. It's like diving out of an airplane. Uh-huh. It's a free fall kind of feeling. Yep. That you control that situation too. If you're an experienced skydiver, you know what you're doing. You're not afraid. You jump. You know that if you do this, that, and the other, and then launch the parachute, and all goes well. If you threw me out of an airplane, it'd be a very different experience.
So do you have certain little things, like if you're about to change direction of your sweep, do you consciously maybe do a hammer on that string and then start with an up? Is there a technique that you've developed over the years?
There's no rule. I'll say that first. There are no rules, but the essential thing about sweeping is that every time you go from one string to the next, and this is not all the time, if you want to do it as a pure technical exercise, then every time you go from one string to the next, the pick should go in the same direction. And that's fundamentally it. So you line up, and it came down to this simple formula of odd and even. If you want to go in one direction, low to high, or high to low, you need an odd number of notes on the string. If you want to change direction, you need an even number. Makes sense. If you're going down, 1, 2 will return you to the other direction, or 1, 2. And 1, 2, 3 will give you the flow, or just 1 right through, or 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Odd numbers will keep you going in a direction. Even numbers will turn it around. So if you organize your notes on the fretboard in a similar way, then you should have flow. So if you, for example, I remember this was one of the arpeggios in the book, was the major 7. And it's, that was a revolutionary shape. because arpeggios are hard on guitar. You know, this was the traditional shape. This one here, this is in all the books.
Uh-huh.
And for the life of me, you can never play or gracefully. This is the best I can do after whatever 150 years of playing guitar. That's with alternate picking.
Yep.
It's a complete and utter disaster. It just doesn't work. So I went, this is ridiculous. We're going to find a way to do this. And so I tried to find a sweep method. This part was okay, the fingering, but I changed the top to only 2 notes. I had to break a few rules.
Yeah.
So I go down. That part makes sense. I can go 1 stroke down for 4 notes, 1 stroke up for 4 notes. But the first part I had to change was this. And the beautiful thing about guitar is that we have so many notes that are the same in different places. There is always a side street to get around the traffic, I always say. There's always another way around. So I did this religiously for many years to refinger things and find other ways. So instead of playing this, this is a C major 7 arpeggio, C, E, G, B. This B, the G, I just put it over here. It's the same note. Okay. So instead of this first part, I was doing 3 notes all on separate strings, and then having 3 notes on the D string, which kept my formula going. So it's down, up, down, 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 up, 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 down, up, up, and then 2 to turn around.
Okay.
Now, it's not a pure major 7 arpeggio, but it's close enough for me. And now, if I had to alternate pick this, I would have to pick 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 16, 17 times, right? With sweeping, I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let that land for a second. 7 picking strokes as opposed to an alternate picker who would have to pick 17 times to get the same result. So for me, the hard thing is playing it in time. And the thing about sweeping is it's not really a slow technique. It's better for playing. Think of it like 5th and 6th gear of a pretty cool BMW. You know, you're going really, really fast. Yep. But it's cruising along. It's not working hard. And you wouldn't use 6th gear to go from a standing start. It's a good analogy because, gears, it's an extra, it's that 5th and 6th gear is the way I consider sweeping to be. If I'm playing slow, I'll pick like anybody else. That's alternate mostly. But when I want to kick it up, it's that extra gear. Yeah. And it's, once you get it, it's effortless, and it's beautiful and it's poetic. It's poetry in motion. And it's like an athlete. When you think of, I think of swimmers sometimes. Swimmers, they go mad. Even Speedos, they're trying to shave an ounce off their Speedos so they can just get that little bit faster. Yeah. Or runner. You watch a runner in slow motion. It's just beautiful. The motion has to be down to its absolute minimum to get that slight edge. Formula One cars, they're shaving an ounce off a piston, or they're making it out of, carbon fiber or something. Yep. Anything to get that higher efficiency for the power. And that's how I felt about this technique. To me, it's glorious. And I don't understand why everyone doesn't use it. I'm a little biased like that, but shit, brilliant. I'm not just saying that from an ego point of view. I'm saying it because it really is a wonderful technique that has liberated me from the typical roadblocks that players get to.
Yep.
It's hard to get beyond that place and to be comfortable at it, to be able to do it effortlessly when you need it. I don't want to play fast all the time. I'll play a melody too. I'm happy to have that facility. It's like getting in a BMW and having all 6 gears and all that power at your command.
So, Frank, when you're not sweeping, do you arrange your scales on the fretboard into 3-note per string type of scale shapes, or do you use the cage system? Is there a particular method that you use to view the fretboard?
I use them all.
Yep.
I'm not limited to positions or hand positions or particular shapes or, after all these years of playing, I know my fretboard pretty darn well. I can play a scale on 1 string, Depends what I'm playing. I love the joy of playing and the improvisation, if I'm in a position, I can sweep. This is some of my recent discoveries is sweeping inside traditional shapes.
Cool.
So that kind of stuff that's a traditional shape. That's a regular minor pentatonic.
Yep.
So I can sweep anywhere. I can play 3-note shapes. I can do that, of course, but I'm open. When I'm improvising, it doesn't matter where I am. It's just, it's like having a football field and you can run, jump, skip, hop, do whatever cartwheels. This is my playground, so I'm going to play on it. It's
Nice.
It's the footland for me. It's where I try to create and be spontaneous and try not to repeat myself too many times. We have our little list that we fall into. That was one of the things I loved about Chick Corea. He was the consummate improviser. Many people would come, to our concerts and they would see him play one night and then we move on to the next city. But I had to hear him night after night after night. And when you're, in the band of a master like that, a grand master, you really know what the level that is attainable by a human. It's a living example of what's possible. And, it seemed you always knew it was him playing, but he just didn't repeat himself. And it used to really inspire me when I'm performing with him to go places that I had never went. We had these discussions. He would say, "Well, what does improvising mean to you, Frank?" And I said, well, to improvise is to play spontaneously. And he says, exactly. No premeditated concept of what you're going to do. You're responding, you're completely open and free to be in the moment. And that's beautiful. That's the real, what improvisation means. So to live up to that and be able to do that spontaneously without falling into our normal, licks and patterns and pitfalls that we fall. It's not a pitfall, Sometimes people consider that's what makes a person's style or recognizable is the things that they do often, But, I think improvising in the true sense of the word, it was the thing that really got me into the joy of improvisation and being free to play anywhere and do anything. Of course, you have to know the positions. I'm not saying that they're not useful. You have to know those. It's like learning a language. There's certain words you got to use. I got to use the word use if I'm going to use the word. There's certain things you need to have. It's part of your, it's your vocabulary. And, having freedom on the fretboard in the way that I think I have after 50 years of playing is having the knowledge that and the ease to know all my keys and all my notes and all my positions and all my patterns. Look, it's only about 2 feet long, folks. How long can it take to learn it?
Yeah, yeah.
You have to really sit and figure it out because it's a labyrinth,
Mm-hmm.
maze.
So, Frank, I wanted to ask you about gear before time gets
Right.
away on us too much. Now, what did you start out playing back when you were 13 and you were playing pubs and clubs back then? What type of gear were you using in the early days, and what did you start on?
Well, we started pretty humbly with mostly copies of copies of copies that were cheap. You have to start somewhere. But I remember the happiest day of my life, or one of them, I should say, one of many, was my 13th birthday. Brother Nunes had conspired with my parents to buy me a guitar. Now, I thought it was going to be this cheapy SG copy, like a thing, I think it's called a Corona. Horrible thing with a Bigsby, fake Bigsby, and it would have been the biggest piece of what.
Yeah.
So it was hard for me to get excited about that. They said, "Oh, we're going to get you this lovely Corona. It's a fantastic guitar. You're going to love it." I'm going, "This is terrible." And much to my surprise, they brought this guitar, and I went, well, "This doesn't look like a Corona case." I opened it up, and it was an L series Strat, a nice 1964 Strat, just like Hendrix's one, that white
Whoa.
color with the white guard. And I went, but this was only like 1960. How old would I? No, it would have been early 70s. So those guitars weren't expensive.
Yeah.
For me, it was like the holy grail. I went, wow, a real Strat. And my playing just took off from there. So I've always thought, parents should always buy their children the most expensive instrument they can afford because it's always saleable. A great instrument is easy to sell. It's much easier than a crappy, cheap thing to sell,
Yep.
But the key point is that it is a really inspirational thing for the child. It blew my mind basically. And anyway, so playing in gigs, I remember the first amp I had was a Fender Twin, and I played that to death for a long time. And I used a bunch of pedals for distortion and stuff. And those were my earliest instruments. I remember buying a Les Paul too at one point. I had I had the two regular camps, a black
Yep.
Les Paul custom mid-60s, around there, 68, something like that, and my Strat, and I was happy as a clam. Those were my main instruments for many, many years back in the early days, which are pretty traditional, really.
Yeah.
But then I got into Marshall amps, and I still love the heck out of Marshall amps there. To me, they are the like hand and glove for a guitar. The guitar and the amp, a combo. Any guitar through a good sounding Marshall combo, not combo, but 21, 20, I've forgotten them. I don't use them at the moment because I'm endorsing some other amps, but some of the earlier Marshalls, the Blues Breaker combo, stuff like that. Those things just amazing to me. They just sound great.
Cool.
I can't remember.
And you use that.
JCMs is what I was thinking of. The
Which one,
JCM
sorry?
heads.
Yep.
JCM, yeah.
Nice. And is that what you used most of your time in Australia before you relocated over to LA? Yep. And then was that a bit of a switch? Because that was the 80s when you went over there, right? So did they become like rack, like everyone else, rack gear, or did you stick to the Marshall?
Well, I sold everything before I left Australia because I knew I could buy it all for half price over there, which was true. I ended up buying a Strat and a Tele when I was over there, and those were the guitars I used throughout most of my time at school and teaching there. And that was it, really. I had a Marshall as well. I don't remember which one it was. It was a Marshall combo. But that was what I was using for the local gigs at first. And then, yes, I got into the rack gear too. I was using a Marshall preamp. It was called the JMP-1, which was a very nice sounding preamp with various effects, rack mount stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I always had a 412 cab. I always liked the 412 Celestion cabs. That's just a mainstay most of the time. Or a 212 Celestion cab. Yeah, you know how it is.
I got a couple of them behind me there, mate.
Yeah, you've got those. Because they just sound perfect.
They do.
There's nothing else to be said, really.
Mm.
You can only go sideways from there. You can't go ahead. I haven't heard better sounding speakers.
Mm.
But everything's direct nowadays, so it's a bit strange. I kind of miss, I still like to record with a mic and speakers when I'm recording guitars.
Something about that.
I do go direct sometimes just for convenience, but it's always nice to hear the speaker.
Yeah.
If you have the space to do it, and why not?
So you say you're going direct. Is there a particular unit that you're using for your direct guitar tones now?
Yeah, I was using DV Mark stuff quite a bit, and I used their multi-amp FG, which is one I helped them with designing for the last two records. The last record I did is called Salve, and it's got some beautiful tones. I was able to, with the help of some nice, plug-in EQs, really dial in. You can really dial in pretty much anything these days. You can input almost anything and then tweak and get pretty close to, whatever you were getting from an amp. So it is getting very close to the real thing these days.
Mm-hmm.
A friend, I'm in Barcelona, and everything I own, except for this guitar and a few little bits and bobs, is in two 40-foot containers waiting to be shipped over from Los Angeles. We're still waiting on our house and stuff like that. So a friend lent me this little Yamaha. It's a desktop amp, and it's very, very cool. That's what I've been using lately here while I'm just, he just gave me a nice little amp to practice with. I should have brought more stuff with me, but I just, I remember we flew, the three of us, me and my wife and daughter, 15 suitcases, only one of which was mine.
Wow.
So, that was it. I just took one suitcase and that's it. So I didn't expect that we'd be out of our, the house buying process in Spain is quite illuminating. It seems to take forever.
Yeah.
I would have had two houses bought in America by now.
Yep. And
easily. But there's a lot of bureaucracy. But once you get beyond that, it's awesome, But there are, they just don't take any risk here at all. Everything's above board, except from the sellers. Everybody's trying to, do a deal under the table. It's amazing. It's a little bit field. I'm learning how things operate here. So,
okay,
but it's cool.
What about guitars, Frank? Now I saw you using the Ibanez, the S series, the Sabres back in the day, with the Floyd Roses and everything. Now I see you've got the yellow Strat there. Tell us the progression of the guitars from then.
Well, I've designed quite a few guitars in conjunction with, and I feel quite lucky to be in a position to be able to help design guitars. You should see this one. This is my latest design. And I don't know if you can see this too well, but it's
look at that.
It's a prototype. Sorry about the lighting, folks.
Oh, you're right.
See the light.
Yeah.
But this is a lovely. This is my second model that I'm designing with Cort. I have an acoustic guitar with them called a Gambale Lux steel string. It's a gorgeous acoustic, and it's very original looking. It looks like nothing else. LUXE, Gambale Lux. And this is going to be the Lux Classical, which we expect to have on the market by next year.
Wow.
So there'll be a steel string and a classical version. Beautiful guitars. I love them. This prototype knocked me out. There's just a few details we're going to change, but it's fundamentally there. I get to design them all, the inlays and the woods and, how it's going to look. It's a beautiful thing. It goes back to Ibanez. I think Ibanez was the first company that signed me back in the late 80s when I was with Chick and stuff. People came to me to endorse their product. And Ibanez, we had 4 guitars that were the S-based guitars, the S Sabre. And there was the FGM 100, 200, 300, and 400, all unique and, a progression over something like a 15-year period. And I still have quite a number of those, actually. You can still find them on eBay occasionally.
Yeah.
And they're beautiful guitars. Very nice, very thin, very light. And then I went to Yamaha, and I designed a really beautiful guitar with them called the Yamaha AESFG. And it's quite a rare guitar because they didn't make very many of them. The reason being was that it was my demands for what I wanted on that guitar was so complex. Even the guy I was working with, the designer, I think his name was John Gadesi at Yamaha, he had to scratch his head and put a lot of thought into just trying to figure a way to deliver what I was asking for. Because I wanted pickups mounted from the back. On my Ibanez FGM 200, the pickups were mounted from behind. And I love the way that looks. It gives a very clean look like the Strat. They use a pick guard to create that effect, but I wanted to have the pickups emerging from the body of the guitar. So
Cool.
it's the same flush effect, but it kind of comes out of the body of the instrument. So, but I wanted a bolt-on neck at the same time, and I wanted a tremolo. And the guy went, can't do all that, But we found a way, and it was interesting. We even came across it. Well, we were wondering where to put how the springs in the back of a Strat have a claw where the springs go, and we had nowhere to put it. The neck reached through to about the center of the body or a bit beyond, and to put the bridge, we had nowhere to put the claw that holds the spring. So we put it at the end of the neck, and apparently that was something we could have patented because it had never been done before. There was nowhere else. We had no choice. But I remember the first time I plugged it in and played it, it was like playing a piano. It had that kind of incredible resonant loop that was mind-boggling.
Wow.
So even though Yamaha, when they came to build it, they said it's too complicated. We don't have a factory, and they have like tons of factories. They're the biggest music instrument company in the world. They couldn't build it. So they had to go to Fujigen, which was a big factory in Japan at the time that were making guitars for everybody, Gibson, Fender, you name it, custom instruments. And so they built it, which doubled the price of what it should have been. So it was a bit of a failure on the market, sadly, because it's a phenomenal guitar. And I can only say that because I own 2 of them, and I remember playing it with a lot of joy. And you can still find them on eBay also. It's a Yamaha AESFG, and I highly recommend them. They're a very unique and original instrument in many, many ways. And then I went to Kiesel after that, and we designed the FG1, which was like a mini 335 chambered and beautiful resonant tones. I think Kiesel makes some of the most beautiful instruments right now. They're killing it. They're doing so beautifully the work. It's just phenomenal and creative. They're on a cutting edge, I like companies that are moving things forward, I like the traditional instruments, but for me, this guitar plays better than a real Strat because it's just more comfortable. It doesn't have the giant block there. It has everything a Strat would have, but it's not a Strat.
Yeah.
There is improvements on stuff that was designed in the 50s. I mean, come on. Not many people driving 1950s cars around the place, they're beautiful instruments, but there is improvement. So I like to stay on the cutting edge. And so that's a brief history of all my guitar creations to date. I'm very excited about this classical from Cort. Very beautiful.
Well, Cort makes some great guitars at great prices. I've known that over the years. As long as I've been playing, I've seen guitars that should be a lot more expensive made by Cort. And they also make other brands as well, don't they? They don't just make the Cort branded ones. They also, like you said, with Fuji again, build other people's guitars for them.
That's right. They're a massive company, and I didn't realize it at the time, but they do make guitars for just about everybody. So, in fact, that's more than 50% of their business is making guitars for other people. But, you know, they do make their own brands, and they're really coming on strong with a lot of different guitars at the moment. I'd like to work with them a little more closely and consult a little bit, and, you know, because I'd like to help steer them in a good direction as far as my abilities and knowledge of guitars. You know, I think it's important to always ask the musicians playing them, the guitar players, to get our input. You know, it's got to be valuable. I mean, we play these things every day. And so we know what a guitar should have, right? We know how it should resonate. We know, you know, ergonomically what it needs to have. It also needs to look aesthetically beautiful. You can't miss any of the details. And, you know, God is in the details. I'm a stickler for details. And so, yeah, I'm glad that these companies have allowed me to give my input on these guitars, because I think it only just improves them, you know.
Nice one. Frank, I'm going to go through some of the viewer comments there, mate, and just see if there's a few questions for you. Right at the top there, Sand Blastskin says, "Hi, Frank. Do you have plans to do any clinics after the whole COVID thing is over?"
I plan to do a whole bunch of everything after this bloody COVID. So I'm tired of this nonsense. I'm sure we all are. Yeah, like, you know, I've had an 8-week European tour that was supposed to happen March 2020. Was postponed to March 2021. You know, and of course, it's been postponed to March 2022. And I'm going, how long could this go on, you know? I think musicians and the arts in general have been hit the hardest because, you know, we were the first to go down, and now we'll probably be the last to get back up again. So it's been a rough time for musicians. And, you know, so, yeah, look, I'm ready. I'm anxious to get back to live performance, of course, clinics and whatever else comes forward. Sure. Absolutely, yes.
There's a lot of shout outs on there, just people saying hello. A few people from Brazil actually watching, so it must be early morning over there.
I just did a live thing last night for Brazil.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
Someone is saying AI in Spain. I in Spain has a beautiful wine from the region of Rioja. Enjoy. Greetings here from Brazil. Alberto Mamsto says, "I also learned modes from Frank. You are forever immortalized in my memory." So there you go, mate. You did make an impact.
Good.
A few other shout outs.
Without knowing modes. I couldn't play anything, so it's fundamental. Yes. Go on. More shout outs?
More shout outs, yeah. Greetings from Brazil. There's a lot of Brazilians watching. Obrigado.
Time. Obrigado.
Frank is a reference to me. Mode No More Mysteries. Yeah. Frank, you're such a visionary guitar player. Chop building exercise, great, really works. Then I get to where Lawrence said Sunbury was in Victoria. Thanks for that, Lawrence.
Yes.
What was it like playing with GHS from Glenn Barnes?
Oh, that's Gambale, Hammond Smith. I forgot to mention that was another group. We did 3 records. It was terrific fun. You know, it was the first time I'd ever recorded. When we did the first record, it was called Show Me What You Can Do. I mean, those 3 records, I blasted through those records. There was no holds barred. We just went for it. And for me, it was a bit, I was a bit nervous on the first record because I'd never really recorded trio before. You know, I was so used to having keyboard players and horn players and, you know, that big wall of chords so I could play on top of it. And so it was very different being in a trio situation with no singer. I mean, we were an instrumental group, so the guitar had to cover a lot of stuff. And I wrote, you know, I didn't write all the music, but I wrote most of it. And worked. I actually wrote a lot of stuff on the piano, believe it or not, because Steve Smith had a really nice piano, which I bought from him. Actually, it's my piano now, where I would work the bass and chords together so that the bass was really integral in the melodic part of the song, or because I wanted it, since I really needed the bass to be part of the whole thing, the melodic part of as well as the rhythmic thing from the bass. So Stu got to play some cool parts, and he wrote some cool parts for he wrote a lot of stuff too for the group. And when we all got together, the first record, we did 10 songs in 10 days, and we came in with nothing.
Wow.
And we got up in the morning, and it was an all-day process, like from 10 a.m. to midnight. And it was great. This is what musicians live for. For me, it was the best thing ever to be on that kind of a schedule. It's pressure, and it was a self-imposed pressure, because I think Steve had to go off on a tour somewhere else. So we had 10 days, and this is it. We've got to make a record. And some people make a record in one day. If you have the tunes prepared, you can just go in and play them, and that's it. You're done in a day or two. We didn't have anything, so we got in the morning, we got in, and we had breakfast, and we got up and we jammed. We jammed and jammed until we found something. Oh, that'll work, That's kind of a cool bit. Let's put that with this other idea, and then we'd rehearse what we'd take lunch, and I would kind of formalize it, write a little quick chart, and organize an arrangement. We kind of did the arrangements together too. And then the afternoon, we'd record the tune and we'd mix it, and that was it for 10 days solid. And the result is magic, really is. I mean, Show Me What You Can Do is a formidable record. It's a guitar. One of those records, in fact, all three, The Beyond was the most succinct and really together one. The third one we did was called GHS3, and that one was, we all kind of came in prepared. I had several tunes already written, so that made the process easier. But the spark on the first one, where I went, oh man, I don't even know if I can do poetry. What the hell? I'm not used to this. And it's got that seat of the pants kind of blowing on there, and it's really just in your face, wall of guitar. And it's very cool record. I'm very proud of all three of those records. They're all, proper testament to my abilities and at my peak. And so I'm very pleased with those three records. Great experience, a lot of fun.
I'm going to have to check those out, mate. I wasn't aware of those. But something sprung to mind for me as you were talking. You played on an album, I think, with Sean Lane and Brett Garsed. Centrifugal Funk, however it was. You played on that, didn't you?
Yes,
man,
I did.
I had that album back in the day. I remember special ordering it, import and everything, and just mind blowing. I totally forgot about that. I've had Brett Garsed on for a chat. Sean Lane, unfortunately, isn't with us anymore, but what a monster player he was.
Yeah, it was, for me, it's a little too much guitar on one record for my personal taste. I liked the record, of course, and it was fun to be involved with that. But none of us ever played together on that one. The rhythm section recorded, and then everybody came in and did their parts individually. And then we all got to hear what everybody else did at the end. And, having three guitar solos in a row is kind of, you got to have a special taste for that. Yeah. For me, it's great, but I wouldn't put it on my record. You know what I mean?
Sure,
three solos in a row.
Yeah.
Unless it's a guitar, keyboard, saxophone. But it was an epic record for sure. Definitely, I get comments on that all the time. It's an epic record. Centrifugal Funk. I'm glad to be on that one amongst some great guitar player heroes. It was a terrific experience.
Just back to the questions there. Isaac, I'm not sure how to pronounce your last name. Negrene. Frank, I love the way you build your chromatic phrases. Could you play some of your favorite examples? They sound only with their technique. Thanks. So
Yeah,
Isaac's wanting
I
to hear
have a
some of
whole
your.
I have a whole section on chromatic sweeps in my latest Gambale sweep picking course at my online school. There's a whole hour of video devoted to that. In general, I love chromaticism because it gives you all 12 notes to play instead of just the scale, right? So if I'm in E Dorian like this, I can connect anything with anything. And that was one I stole from Chick years ago, where you go whole steps in half steps, which is chromatic. So I could just end up on the fifth there.
Nice.
And this one, circling around the notes. You can use all the notes, folks.
Beautiful.
So it can just go anywhere. You can use all the notes. Kind of know how. There shouldn't be any limitation. You can take an E minor triad, either side of not either side, but into the E. You can do that kind of approach thing, Either side of the note, that's a good way to get started. And then
Beautiful.
Connecting, I want to go here to here. You can take it out. I can stay outside. In fact, the latest course I'm writing right now and it's been requested heavily. It's interesting that people are asking for this a lot from me. They're saying a course on playing outside. So that's exactly what it is. It's going to be a course on playing outside. And it won't be for the squeamish.
Okay. Now, as you were playing then, I cut to you, I had your name in the way of your picking hand. I had to drag it out of the way just to watch whether you were picking when you went chromatic or whether you were doing the legato thing. But you pick, or does it depend on what? Yep, whatever needs it at the time.
I can put little flurries of sweep in there. I can do sweeps like that. So, like sweeping across, it's a combination. To me, sweeping, you can't sweep on one string, so you have to alternate. If you want to play more than one note on a string, you have to have a good combination of alternate, and you only sweep when you're going across the strings.
Uh-huh.
So you do need to have both techniques at a pretty good level, I got a pretty decent alternate. But I just...
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Sweep whenever necessary. To get
Mate,
that,
I'm going to have to
fun
jump
as well.
on and to the Frank Gambale guitarschool.com and take advantage of the 40% off to learn some of that myself. The code, once again, for folks, number four, Australia, all in capitals, gives you 40% off at the moment at frankgambaleguitarschool.com.
Only for the weekend.
Only through this weekend.
Yeah, and it'll expire Sunday night, midnight.
If anybody would like to buy a guitar, I'm selling some to fund some things like this, so that I can improve my playing. So hit me up. I actually am selling some of those to get a serious amp again. I need the heavy artillery amplifier. Just a few gigs have come my way where I've had to borrow some Soldanos and the like, and it's time to get a real amp again. Back to the questions there, Frank. One,
to go soon, bud.
yeah, that's why I'm trying to just round it up, mate. When you recorded your solos in Chick's electric band, did Chick let you choose your best solo takes, or did he give opinions on it?
Hell no. It was all live, man.
All live, yeah?
All live and very, very much first takes. Everything. That's just the way Chick is. I remember I finished his favorite solo of mine on any of the electric band records that we did was called, the song was called Make a Wish on the Inside Out album. And it was really hard changes, man. I was playing at the seat of my pants getting through this, and I just went for it. Sometimes you just go, screw it, I'm going to just blast. I know the change, but they're hard, but I'm just going to go for it. He loved it. It's his favorite solo of mine. And at the end, I played something that I wasn't happy with. I didn't feel like I came out of it very well. And I asked him, I said, Chick, he's listening back to it going, oh, cool, And I said, can I fix the end? And he said, no, don't touch it. It's exactly, don't touch anything. But I said, but I kind of screwed up at the end a little bit, And he looks at me, he says, if you didn't like it, why did you play it?
Wow.
And I had no words to say to that. I went, yeah, why did I play it?
What an amazing insight into how he thinks when
I just said, okay, I'm leaving it that way, and that's the way he loved it. And he wanted all kinds of grit, whether it was a mistake or not. It didn't bother him at all. He was more into the emotional feeling of that recording. I'm being buzzed to leave.
Okay, mate. I will round things up. Frank, thank you so much for your time. Sorry to my friends here that I haven't got to the questions.
2 quick questions. I'll answer them quickly.
Okay, there was one just on, do you do finger exercises every day?
No, I like to improvise. To me, I'll sit and put some changes in Guitar Pro or whatever and start playing. To me, playing and improvising is the joy of playing these days. Exercises, just purely for exercises, are no fun to me. I would rather practice a musical piece, something that's a challenge. If you need a challenge to get your technical abilities better, I would rather do it in a musical way rather than just something that's purely finger exercise. That's what I would recommend.
Nice. I'll just breeze through them, mate. We're getting shout outs from everywhere, from Macedonia, Finland, Brazil, Turkey. There's a super chat from Andre. Thank you very much. There's no question attached to that I can see. Frank is very special for us. The passion and feeling proposed by Frank is something extraterrestrial. Thank you very much, Master. That's from Andre Prado.
That's beautiful.
Who were your musical influences, Frank, and now what you listen? Can you quickly, is that?
Well, I listen to everything pretty much. My daughter is exposing me to all kinds of pop music these days, which I'm pulling my hair out. I don't have any. It's already been pulled out. And look, everything. I listen to jazz, pop, historic music that I've loved as a child. I can listen to Beatles, Police, Coltrane, the Eagles, Crosby, Stills. I can listen to Steely Dan all along, George Duke, Stanley Clarke, all these. There's so much great music out there, and I listen to whatever my daughter's listening to. There's some very cool young artists. And so, be open, because you can learn from everyone. You can learn in the places you wouldn't think you could learn from. So,
well, there you go, folks. The master has spoken. Frank, again, thank you so much for your time. And Enjoy your day, and thank you everyone for tuning in.
Pleasure.
Bye now. See you next time.
Thanks a lot. See you later.